Tracy, your first novel, Altaker, is the first book in a series, the Chronicles of Altaker, which is set in a fictional world. How did you go about creating the boundaries of the world of Altaker?
Unbelievably, lots of research, like lots. Because when you're making a fantasy world, it has to feel real. It has to feel like it has a sense of history. So you research everything from building construction through to religion, politics, currency, you know, and you might not use all that in your writing, but it will come through in little lines here and there, you know, because it's got to function as a society, which sounds crazy because it's a book, you're making it all up out of your head, you know, but there is a lot of research that goes into it. And what you create also has to be something that people can relate to. So for me, I love history, so I've actually cherry-picked bits of history and combined them into Altaker. There's actually a lot of, there's some Turkish mythology in there that I've manipulated, lots of sort of Turkish weapons, fortification, construction, you know, all sorts of stuff that goes into creating an atmosphere, because when you write, there's that sense of history, but you're also writing with all your senses, so people have got to feel like when they read they can see it and touch it and almost smell it, you know. So, yeah.
So is the world of Altaker fully formed in your mind now, or are you still discovering things through your research?
Parts of it are fully formed. I'm finding as I go into different regions, because there's some parts of the world and even some parts of the map that I haven't taken the story into yet, that they will get more developed as I go along. And structurally you sometimes need to create things in your landscape in terms of plot, which you can then do. So some parts of the map in the book currently are a bit blank, and they'll get filled in as we progress. Yeah.
So you said that the world is based a lot on research about our current world or historical world. Yep. How much of it is different to our world?
Quite a bit, because it's, whilst it has a basis in history, it's all combined in a different type of way, and it still has those elements of magic that are actually incorporated in it, because to do a fantasy novel without magic would be like, you know, taking the chocolate out of chocolate. So yeah, it's similar in some ways because people need to relate, but there are significant differences in culture and things like that.
Given that it's a series of novels, how do you go about planning the structure of each book within the context of a Chronicles? Yeah,
there's actually quite a bit of planning. They say authors are either planners or pantsers, and I'm probably in the middle. I know where I want the story to start, where I want it to end, and I have key events that I know I must hit in the plot line, but in between I'll wing it a bit. But then when you're talking about a series, you've introduced all these little plot arcs that you may not have, that you don't finish in the first book because they're going to carry over 3 or 4 or 5 that you need to pick up. And so
they have to be resolved at some point.
That's exactly right. And when you come to the second one, you've actually got to go through and make sure you pick all those plot arcs up and you finish them off.
So how do you keep track of them all?
I've got this massive mind map done on a program called Scalpel, and you can put all your plot threads down, and I do them in multiple colours. And then it actually caused me to look at one plot thread that was saying green and tiny, and I went, I need to do a little bit more work on that. And it helps you just keep track of where everything's going, because it can get really big. You know, because I've probably got 3 or 4 arcs that are still going that need to be resolved.
Do you know how they're all going to be resolved yet?
Yeah. Some of them will be resolved in this sequel, and a couple will continue, probably 2 will continue over for the course of the 5 books.
Right.
So, yeah.
Now, you have a very strong protagonist, Isora, in the first story, who's trying to survive in the world you've created. Did your idea for the story start with the character or with the world?
The idea for the story actually started with what will be the 3rd book.
Okay.
And then I was working out how it all came to be, and then this book and the sequel arose. I also liked the idea, she's actually a refugee. She's actually born to refugees in a culture that is frightened of her kind, and so there's some parallels there to, you know, what's going on with us now.
Absolutely, something that's very current as well.
And struggles always to fit in and has only a few friends, but then running away from an army, goes on this journey that really makes her question where she belongs and to question the nature of friendship. So it really looks at that fragility of human nature when you're faced with survival. So, yeah, that just sort of developed from there. And then all aiming for that final bit, which was the actual origin of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I was really interested in your concept of grey morality, where nothing is 100% good or bad. Could you tell us a bit more about how this concept runs through your work?
Yeah. Izora's placed in a situation where she has to make some very horrible moral choices. She gets blamed for those choices, but there's not a lot of alternative for her, or the alternative would be even more dire for herself, and it's about learning to live with the consequences. The people around her who act for probably what seems to be the right reasons are actually acting out of their own self-interest. So, you know, you get people in this book who do the right thing for almost the wrong reasons, and people who do the wrong thing for the right reasons. And I actually like that notion of twisting things, that there isn't, it sounds really depressing, but that there isn't a lot of true altruism in the world.
Sure.
Yeah.
And did you want your readers to sort of sit in her shoes and think about what choices they would make if they were in her position?
Yeah, absolutely. And there was, I won't go into it, but there was one scene I was actually quite worried about with one of these moral choices that some people would take, you know, would find objectionable. And so far, everybody's put themselves in her shoes, and it hasn't been, you know, a problem. So, so it's good, yeah.
And will the Chronicles of Altacre take us through a number of different characters' experiences, or is it mainly going to be Izora's?
No, you get to see, I do switch viewpoints to other characters who are around her and what they are thinking, because it's all about that interplay.
Okay, so how do you distinguish the different voices and personalities of your lead characters?
Often there'll be a scene break and you'll know you're going into a different character quite clearly, but they do all have different ways that they're all, this sounds crazy, they're all different people, they all think differently, and it just comes through in the writing. I don't even know whether I construct that or whether that just happens, or that bit happens organically. Yeah, okay. You get into their heads, and if some of them are a bit crazy, you have slight crazy moments when you're writing.
I imagine some of that would also come from your research.
Yes, and people around you. You know, it's never good to annoy a writer, because they might turn you into a character and kill you off with their book.
Really?
And there's a couple of people in there that are probably a little bit like that. People you know. Writers are all very good observers of human nature, and you find yourself having a coffee somewhere watching body language and how people react to things, and you do just naturally put that into your writing.
So you're influenced by the everyday.
Yeah, I think we all are, you know, and no matter what we write and no matter what world we create, it's always the sum of our experiences. You know, there is no getting away from your past, and that's actually a theme in the book as well. You can't escape your past.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. That was great.
No problem. Thank you. You were lovely.